Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean? Murder.
But only one of these suspects is the murderer.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin.
I'm Jake.
And this is Movie Matters. I think we're feeling a little better. I'm definitely better.
Yeah.
But not 100%. Jake, you sound better.
Yeah.
So we're back. Definitely sounding better. Hopefully it wasn't too bad last week. But today we're talking about the movie Clue from 1985. This is my first time seeing it. I thought it was hilarious. What did you think, Jake?
Yeah, this was a nice, easy, fun movie. I feel like we've been watching some kind of more serious and borderline a lot of analysis and thematic stuff, and this movie is just a good old popcorn movie, and it's just wacky and goofy, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. It reminded me of Naked Gun, kind of that tone.
Yeah.
It has that tone to it where it's goofy, it's fun, like you said, and
it's trying to be serious, where at the same time it's off the rails,
I like comedy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's the actors aren't necessarily playing funny. They're playing it straight, but they're the way it is, and the dialogue is hilarious.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I like that. And yeah, that's a very good tone. That's kind of how I like doing my comedy in general, is that serious, where you can't tell if I'm joking, but I'm joking. Yeah. Sometimes, it just depends. I like playing that fine line. That's always fun. Mm-hmm. This is the first movie based on a board game to come out, which is pretty interesting. I think they did a great job adapting it. Jonathan Lynn and John Landis did the story. John Landis we know from Blues Brothers. We know him from An American Werewolf in London. So other 80s movies. I like John Landis. He's great. So the original board game was called Cluedo. It was published by Waddingtons in the UK in 1949, and then the American version came out, Clue. It quickly became one of the world's most popular board games, eventually selling 100 million units and earning in excess of $1 billion. Pretty crazy. I mean, this board game's very well known. I've known about this movie for a long time, but I've just never watched it. And
same, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, yeah, again, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny. There was a lot of laugh out loud moments. I laughed a lot. It's not the best movie I've ever seen. It's not the best comedy, but for an 80s comedy, it's up there. It's up there with one of my favorite 80s comedies, for the decade, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a lot of really laugh out loud funny moments. The cast is stacked, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I knew nothing about this other than it was about based on the board game. So I went in and in the opening credits saw John Landis as executive producer, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And then saw that he wrote the story with the other guy. I was like, oh shit, this actually might be good.
Yeah.
And the first person you see is Tim Curry, and it's oh, I didn't know anybody that was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
So one by one, I'm seeing the actors' names pop up on the screen. And I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of people that are really well-known actors in this movie. I was oh, it's pretty cool, actually,
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit of a hidden gem.
100%.
Is to be totally honest, I probably never would have watched this movie if it wasn't for this podcast.
Hell yeah, I love hearing
just
that.
Never would have occurred to me,
And aren't you glad you watched it, Jake?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a fun movie. It's definitely like one to put on if you're like, I just want to watch something that's a little mindless and like, funny, you know.
Yeah, it's
which is kind of ironic because this is a murder mystery movie.
Who done it? Who done it?
But like, yeah, I mean, you're not really watching it for the mystery aspect. You're watching it because it's a like goofy, comedy, you know.
Yeah, I had the same thought as you. Again, I didn't know too much about it. I knew Tim Curry was in this movie. I didn't know anyone else in the cast. Which, like you said, the cast is stacked, and we'll get to that. Yeah, when I saw John Landis too, I was like, oh no shit! I literally paused the movie and notated it in my notes that I take for these movies. It's like, oh, John Landis, nice. Yeah, I mean, again, I've been wanting to watch this movie for a long time, and this podcast also made me watch this movie, and I'm glad we had it on our list. Again, that's the point of this podcast: is watch 80s movies that we didn't get to see in our youth, or introduce it to people who have never heard of it or seen it, and rate them and review them. I mean, that's the whole point of it. It's like they don't make them like they used to, and this movie's a great point for that. It didn't do well at the box office. It has definitely developed a cult following. A lot of people love this movie, and I'm glad that it's developed a following, because it's fucking funny, really funny.
Yeah,
like I was surprised at the laugh out loud moments.
Yeah, and like I just want to reiterate a little bit that like this, for having this cast and John Landis attached to it, it's like mind-boggling to me that this isn't like a top 5 80s movie, you know, that like everyone knows. Yeah, for whatever reason, it like, you know, slipped in under the radar, and it's kind of it's definitely a massively underrated movie.
I'm going to Google when it came out, because I wonder if that has anything to do with its box office returns.
What it was like matched up against or something?
Yeah.
Because there has to be a reason. And like maybe they blew the whole budget and didn't have any money for marketing or something, you know? That could be the case too. It's just an odd circumstance to me. You'd think this would have been like a heavily promoted, heavily seen movie, given how much. I don't know what the budget was, but I'm sure you'll bring it up in a second. But like, it seems like a fairly large budget movie, not like crazy, but most of it's going to the talent, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'll look it up in a second. But so Back to the Future was the top grossing movie in December 13th, but it didn't come out then. It came out, so this movie came out in December, which is kind of interesting for a comedy coming out in Christmas time.
Yeah,
I feel like. So maybe it was marketed a little weird. But other movies that were popular in December was Out of Africa, Young Sherlock Holmes, 101 Dalmatians, and The Color Purple. Those all came out in around that time. And also other movies released in 85 that were super popular. Beverly Hills Cop, which we just did.
Yeah.
Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and Rocky 4.
So a lot of heavy hitters that year.
Yeah. Let's see what I didn't look up the budget beforehand, but I just know that it was a box office dud. Let's see if it'll tell me. $15 million. That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. We just did Indiana Jones. I mean, that came out in 81, and that was a $18 million budget. $15 million for this is kind of high. Like you said, it probably went to the talent. It's like one location, which I love movies like that because it's simple. It should keep the budget down, but this one,
it is an opulent location.
Yeah,
like,
but they built the sets for this.
Yeah, none of that material is real, but
yeah. It says worldwide it only made just under 15 million, so it made its budget back not even. And then obviously you have marketing, and you got to pay the theaters half your box office returns. So yeah, it didn't make money at all. Pretty interesting, especially considering this has Christopher Lloyd, from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And there was a cool fact I had about Christopher Lloyd. It came out the same year. And Christopher Lloyd starred in these two films that were set 30 years earlier. So this one takes place in the mid-50s. And then they both take place in at a site with the word hill. So this is Hill House and Hill Valley. And both have a thunderstorm during the date of their climactic events. June 9th, 1954 and November 12th, 1955. Pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty interesting. And this, speaking of Christopher Lloyd, this, like, again, Back to the Future, you think he's old as shit. And then you see him in this movie and you're like, oh, he's like in his
really
like
young,
like he's in like his 40s, like,
or comparatively young,
like he doesn't have gray hair. So pretty interesting. I like him in this. He's really funny in this. I like all the characters. I really like Michael McKean, who is the gay politician in this.
Oh yeah. Which me and Jenna were laughing our asses off because he is more recently or a 90s movie that people would know him from is Beetlejuice, right? He's the dad.
Yeah.
And then
that's an 80s movie, by the way, actually. It's not a 90s
Was it 89?
I think it's 88.
Oh yeah, you're right. It is. Yeah. Yeah, it is on our list.
88. It is 88.
But he's also in a movie called Best in Show.
Oh,
which
so good.
If I never saw that movie until I met my wife.
Really?
It is one of my favorite comedies. It is so funny. It's kind of like a mockumentary about dog shows. And he plays one of two gay men that have these like Pomeranians or something, and like they're like known as these, like they always win and like and stuff like that, but like they're so like over pampered and their dogs are over pampered, and like it's hilarious.
I love that movie. Best in Show is hilarious.
So
definitely a highly recommended comedy for people who haven't seen it. His name, I just looked it up in Best in Show. I know we're getting off topic here, but his name in Best in Show is Stefan Vanderhoof.
Yeah.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Best in Show in like a year or two, and I gotta rewatch that. That movie's super good.
But he's such a good actor.
He is.
He's hilarious.
He's also great in Better Call Saul. He was really good as Saul's brother. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really liked him the best in this movie. There's a lot of great lines. Like, the dialogue is so good. There's some super comedic lines. All the actresses in this knock it out of the park. I think they're all awesome in this. Like, there's no one that... Everyone stands together. You know, it's a very ensemble piece, this comedy. And that's what I love about it.
Hard to do in a group this size. And, like, to do it in... what kind of strikes me about this movie is that it doesn't do that 70s style comedy where it's like fast paced shot, you know, like kind of dialogue. Yeah. They actually do let things land really well and give you the room to laugh and then hear the next line, which is like my biggest complaint with like the early 80s and 70s kind of comedy styles is that they're trying to hit quantity of jokes over quality, I think, a lot of the time. But this movie does a really good job of keeping the pace of the comedic lines spaced well enough.
Yeah, it's got a good
giving
rhythm.
them some room to breathe.
And
like, it helps as a viewer because like you
100%.
don't want to be like laughing your ass off and then you miss a like key line of dialogue, especially in a murder mystery, like, you know. Yeah. So I
hate that.
It was done really well.
The only other
good writing.
Agreed. The only other comedy that it's like you laugh and you miss jokes, but it's still so good is Naked Gun, where it's like
but like
there's
the
just a
Naked
joke
Gun
every
is
line.
like Yeah, I mean, like that, but that's what makes that movie so good is that like once
You go
you
back.
know the jokes that like are really funny,
Yeah.
you then hear the secondary joke or like the sometimes like third level joke that's like stacked on top of it. So
Yeah.
the rewatchability is super high. But
I feel like
yeah,
rewatchability on this is pretty good.
yeah,
And it's pretty cool because the there were three different endings shot, and you see it in the movie and they what they did with this was pretty cool and pretty original if you ask me. So three different endings were shot. There was a different ending shown at each theater. So one theater would play ending A, one theater would play ending B, one theater would play ending C. And the whole goal of that was John Landis, it was his idea to do this, is he thought the audience would catch on to the gimmick and they'd go and see the film 3 times. So it'd help with box office receipts. Obviously, they decided they did not want to pay 3 times to see this.
yeah,
To see the same film, basically. So, but on home video and DVD, and obviously within streaming, I stream this on Paramount Plus. It's a Paramount
Same,
movie.
yeah.
They show all three endings. Which I like that they did that.
yeah. It almost is like a nod to the board game.
100%.
Like you have multiple players trying to guess and then like screwing up, and then the third ending is what really happened. Like
Yeah.
somebody guessed it right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was kind of neat, whether it was intentional or not. I think that was kind of a cool little tie-in to the board game in a way.
They wanted to be meticulous and very like strict with it, paying homage to the board game and being strict to the rules, and I liked that. And when I was first watching it, I do want to watch it again because it's like when I was first watching it, at points I was like trying to pinpoint who was in the room at the same time and
Same.
who wasn't. But I kind of just like got lost and was like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on the comedy aspect of it this time, and I'm glad I did. And like, I don't know, did you pick up on certain things and you were like, hey, this person wasn't in the room at this time, so then he or she murdered this person?
So I, about halfway through, I was pretty certain that Colonel Mustard did it.
Yeah.
Because there was one, is it a double murder? Where the like Candygram person gets shot and the maid gets choked to death, I think, or the
I think
two
those
that
are
are
at different times.
I can't remember who dies. Whoever dies with the Candygram person getting shot.
Yeah. Was
the
it
only-
the car guy?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he
The
gets
guy-
killed with the candlestick.
The guy.
And
yeah. No. Wait, hold on. It's the
I've
guy
got the list. I've got the list.
It's the guy that.
Do you want me to read it?
It's the guy that was. His car broke down.
Yeah.
And the Candygram. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
gets
yeah.
hit with the candlestick. So the murders as follows: the cook in the kitchen with the dagger, Mr. Bodie in the hall with the candlestick. Excuse me. And then his previous demise was in the study with the revolver, but it was a false death. The
Yeah.
motorist is the guy's name in the
Yes.
lounge with the wrench, not the candlestick.
Yeah,
I said
right.
candlestick. Excuse me. The wrench. Yvette the maid in the billiard room with the rope. The cop in the library with the lead pipe. The singing telegram girl in the hall with the revolver. So okay, so it was the
Oh,
cop.
the cop.
It was
Yes.
the cop and the telegram people. or
Yeah. So
telegram
the
girl.
only people that were on the first floor when the cop and the Candygram girl are killed are Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet. And I want to say that right before that, we see Miss Scarlet somewhere. And then you see those two murders. So the only person that really had access, theoretically, would have been Colonel Mustard, who had split up with Miss Scarlet earlier.
Okay.
So I was like pretty certain he did it. And depending on which ending, they both did it.
Yeah. I like the last ending where like everyone has done something except for Michael McKean's character, who is, what's his name? It's not Mr. Green, is it?
Yeah, he's Mr. Green.
Okay, yeah, it is Mr. Green. Okay. Yeah. Colonel Mustard's awesome. Martin Mull, he's funny too. I like him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen these actresses before. I think I'd maybe seen Colleen Camp before. She's the one that plays Yvette, the maid. I love that she's in this skimpy little outfit, and everyone is just like ogling over her. It's just so funny because it's such a running gag throughout the entire time that she's alive, and it's like ridiculous. Apparently, she went to her audition in a low-cut French maid outfit, and it showing a lot of her cleavage, which is, you know, the key of her character. And the director and writer, Jonathan Lynn, admitted that he was impressed with Camp's acting skills, her comedic acting skills, that it was her well-endowed figure that gave her the role, which is kind of funny. So again, it added to the comedy and the running gag aspect of it. And she's actually pretty funny in it with her accent, and I thought she was great. I really liked Miss Scarlet. She was great. I liked her the best. She was like, apparently the reason she was, so all these characters are in hot water and they're all in politics, and I loved that aspect of it. And they're all being blackmailed, and I liked that aspect of it. And the fact that they don't know each other, I love how they brought them all together, and like that's the story to get them into this game of death, which is great.
Yeah, it's a cool premise. For sure. Yeah.
The reason she's being blackmailed is because she basically runs a brothel, which is hilarious. Like that's comedy in and of itself, if you ask me. I think that's pretty funny.
I will say, I think Mrs. White,
who's in all black.
Who's in all black? Yeah,
that's funny.
Which no one's colors match, which is pretty funny.
They all match their cars. I don't know if you noticed that.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, Mrs. White is actually in Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. I'm pretty sure.
Oh shit! Let me double check.
She's the
she is in Young Frankenstein.
The wife
Elizabeth.
Or fiance of Dr. Frankenstein. And then I think she's the cabaret singer in Blazing Saddles. I'm pretty sure. So she's had a
Lily von Stupp.
Yes. That's
in
right.
Blazing Saddles, which Stupp in Yiddish is to fuck, by the way. It means sex. So
but two of like the funniest movies of all time. And she's fantastic in both of them.
Yeah, I forgot that's her.
I was happy to see her in this movie because I love those movies.
Yeah, they're so good. They're so good. Those are 70s, I believe.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, 74. Wow, they both came out in the same year.
Yeah, Mel Brooks is just churning out movies.
What a G. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of funny parts. What did you have like a funniest part that you were like, okay, that's the best?
I really liked the gag of Tim Curry like running around and reenacting everything, and everyone just chasing him around the house. You know, like it was a pretty great gag.
A literal running gag.
Yeah, a running gag. Yeah,
literal.
I like when he pops out of the freezer and scares the shit out of everybody too.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny too.
And false. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really good one-liners, and I have to like watch it again to remember, them. But I think you probably have one.
My favorite line was when Michael McKean's like, I'm a plant because he's the FBI agent, and Miss Scarlet's like, they usually call men like you a fruit. I love that line.
Yeah,
I laughed so
funny.
hard at that line. A lot of the like gay gags in this are hilarious. Like, for example, he gets
Oh, go
on.
ahead and finish.
he gets paired up with Yvette. Like, everyone wants to get paired with Yvette, the
yeah.
maid, because obviously she's promiscuous, and he gets like the gay guy gets paired up with
Yeah.
her, which is hilarious, and draws. They draw the matches, and like that was hilarious.
Yeah. I don't remember which ending it was, but the one where he reveals himself to be the FBI agent and goes like, "Now I'm going to go have sex with my wife."
That's the last line. That's the last line of the movie.
That's the last ending, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and that's
so
the last
funny.
line, which is hilarious. Yeah, because he's not
So
actually
funny.
gay. Yeah, I love that. I love that too. Yeah, I love that. That's the last line of the movie. It's so good. It's just like boom, hit it.
Yeah.
So
And his character in particular is pretty funny because, as you noted, he's the only one in every ending that doesn't kill anybody.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole movie, he's like adamant that he did not kill
Yeah.
anybody. Like, that's a pretty good gag. It has good payoff in the end.
and the fact that he's like a klutz, it kind of adds to like his
Yeah.
nervousness that he's like an FBI agent, where he's like in the not supposed to be there technically, and
Right,
I like
yeah.
that. So, there's also a good line where there's a ton of good lines, but like where Mrs. Peacock is like, "I'm gonna go to the bathroom," and the French maid is like, "Oh, oui," and she's like, "No, I'm gonna go powder my nose." Just like stupid stuff like that. I like that stuff's funny to me.
Yeah, like a lot of that, like Naked Gun kind of
Yeah,
one-liner
it's got
comedy,
that-
like that. Like I
Those
don't know,
vibes.
it's like pun-driven,
Yes.
one-liners.
Yes.
Just so good.
Yeah, I love puns. And I like that, like, they keep turning the lights off and screaming, and like that's hilarious. There's a lot of running gags. Yeah, I mean, there was apparently a fourth ending scripted, but never shot, in which Wadsworth, the butler, Tim Curry, committed all the murders out of a twisted need for the perfection in his life, which I could see. He reveals that he poisoned everyone with slow-acting toxins in their drinks. So when they're at the dinner table and drinking, which brings me to, there's that one shot of, I'm blanking on his name again. We just said it too. It's
Mustard?
yes, Colonel Mustard. Thank you. Colonel Mustard like pours the drinks and just like, like spills everything, which is just hilarious. It's just
Yeah.
like over the top. Yeah, so he poisons their drinks. It ended with Wadsworth being killed by the dogs as he attempted to escape by car from the house. That ending is probably why it was never released, because it's kind of like grim of him getting killed by dogs. It was never shown. It was shot too. But it was never shown because the filmmakers thought the ending would be too obvious. It only survives in the novelization and storybook, which features a single photo from that ending, the chief punching Wadsworth in the stomach. So pretty interesting if that one made it there too. But I like the last ending the best, where he says this is the one that really happened, and everyone has killed someone because of blackmail and deception and all that. And I don't know, that makes it entertaining. Yeah, I mean, overall, it's a great movie. I mean, there wasn't a ton of trivia on it that I found to be fascinating. That was about it.
Yeah.
What else do you want to talk about?
I mean, it's kind of a straightforward movie,
Yeah, these
despite
comedies-
being a mystery. But
Yeah.
like I do like. I found it pretty interesting that the movie starts out kind of like creepy and mysterious.
Yeah,
And like slowly shifts into like the wacky like comedy, which was kind of fun.
I do like that.
It's like the whole dinner scene is actually like kind of tense and like
Yeah,
there's like a lot of suspense over like what's going on, and then like as they move into, was it the study or wherever the initial murder takes place.
The billiards room or whatever, I think.
It's not the billiards room. It's right next to the billiards room.
Okay.
The lounge.
Yeah, maybe the lounge.
I think it's the lounge. But that's where things start getting like kooky and weird, which is like fun. And then like it like eases that tension, and you're like, okay, now I can like enjoy myself and like have some fun,
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was pretty well done.
Has your wife seen this movie before?
No, so it was both
Okay.
of our first time watching it.
Did she like it?
Yeah, she thought it was funny. She thought it was
Good.
fun.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, there's not like, like you said, like this isn't like a film masterpiece, like
Yeah.
there's like, we could just like eviscerate the movie if we wanted to, like
Yeah.
in terms of like technical.
I don't have anything negative
stuff,
to really
but,
say
like,
about it, though.
it's, Like, there's no reason to like shit on this movie,
Yeah.
Like it is what it is, and it's fun, and it's entertaining, and like
Yeah.
it's not trying to be Rain Man or like a masterpiece of film.
Yeah.
It's trying to make people laugh and have a good time. So
Yeah, that's
it
the end
definitely
goal.
does it.
Yeah, agreed. That's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I really am glad we watched it, and I think it's funny because like whenever we review comedies, our comedy reviews are always a lot shorter than the other movies, and you kind of
Yeah.
said it in the beginning where you're like, this movie's not very thematic, or like we can't really dissect it too much. So I think that's funny, but it's definitely
Yeah,
definitely
we
a
don't
worthwhile
want to just
movie.
list every joke too.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we probably have a pretty heavy thematic one coming next week
Yeah.
that we both haven't seen. It's called The Vanishing, so get ready for that one, because I hear that one's pretty intense. And the less we know about that movie, the better we will have of an experience watching that movie, from what I've heard. So
Yep.
I'm excited for that. Definitely go and watch this movie, and let us know what you think. And thanks for listening, guys.
Yep. See you next week.